For as long as most of us can remember, the US dollar has been the undisputed king of global finance. It's the currency everyone turns to, the bedrock of the whole system. But what if I told you that throne is starting to look, well, a little shaky? Let's get into it.
Yeah, think about that for a second. That's how one source describes what a dollar collapse could feel like. It's not just a dramatic line, it really gets to the heart of the issue, right? The dollar isn't just America's money, it's the foundation for the entire global economy. And when you start seeing cracks in that foundation, everything built on top of it is at risk. All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to tackle this head on. First, we'll ask, is the dollar really collapsing? And what does that even mean? Then we'll dig into the three big threats facing it: the cracks in our own economy, the rivals on the world stage, and the wild card of digital money. After that, we'll imagine what a world with a weaker dollar looks like. And finally, where people try to hide their money when things get messy. Okay, so let's dive right into that first big question. Is the dollar actually collapsing? You hear that word collapse, and it sounds like this single, massive, overnight event, doesn't it? But the truth is, it's a bit more complicated. It's really more of a spectrum. And this really breaks it down perfectly. On one end, you've got this gradual decline. Think of it as a slow leak in a tire. Your money just doesn't go as far as it used to, and inflation is stubbornly high. A lot of analysts are basically saying, hey, we're already here. Then you step it up a notch to an accelerated decline. This is a much more serious drop, maybe 20 to 40% in just a couple of years. It's a very real risk, according to some. And then way over on the extreme end, you have full-blown hyperinflation. We're talking wheelbarrows full of cash to buy a loaf of bread. Now, thankfully, that last one is seen as extremely unlikely for the US. So what's behind all this anxiety? What's causing these cracks to appear in the first place? Well, let's start with threat number one, the economic fault lines. These are the problems brewing right here at home. Just look at that number. $37 trillion. It's kind of hard to even wrap your head around a number that big, right? That's the projected U.S. national debt. And that is a massive, massive weight dragging on the dollar, forcing people all over the world to ask a really tough question. How long can this possibly go on? So why is a number that big so dangerous? Well, first off, it just chips away at investor confidence. And there's actual research on this. Once a country's debt is bigger than its entire annual economic output, that debt to GDP ratio crosses 90%, the risk of a currency crisis just skyrockets. And spoiler alert, the US blew past that line a long time ago. Here's the kicker, though. To keep the lights on, the US absolutely needs other countries to keep buying its debt. If that foreign money ever dries up, if those investors suddenly lose faith and start selling off their US assets, it could kickstart a really dangerous downward spiral. And that question, what happens if they stop, leads us perfectly into our second major threat, the geopolitical challengers. Because while the US is dealing with these internal economic cracks, you can bet there are rivals on the world stage who are paying very close attention. To really get this, we have to talk about something called the Triffin dilemma. It's this super interesting paradox. For the whole world to use the dollar, America has to pump a ton of dollars out into the global economy. How do you do that? You buy more stuff than you sell. You run these huge trade deficits. But if you do that for decades, everyone starts looking at their pile of dollars and thinking, wait a minute, is this stuff really worth as much as it used to be? It's a catch-22, and it creates the perfect opening for challengers. And who are the main challengers walking through that door? Right now, all eyes are on the BRICS nations. We're talking about a powerful group: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. This isn't just talk. They are actively looking at creating their own currency for trade, specifically to get around the dollar. Now, let's be real, building a new global reserve currency from scratch is insanely difficult. But the fact that they're even trying is a huge deal. It's part of this bigger, quieter trend you're seeing everywhere. Central banks are slowly but surely starting to hedge their bets and move away from being all in on the dollar. All right, that brings us to our third and maybe most unpredictable threat. This one's the real wild card in the deck, the digital disruption. We're talking about new technologies that are fundamentally challenging what we even think of as money. This chart lays it out perfectly. In one corner, you've got the defending champion, traditional government-issued money like the US dollar. A central bank controls it, and they can basically print as much as they want. In another corner, you have the radical challenger, decentralized crypto like Bitcoin. No central boss and a fixed supply that can never be changed. That's a total game changer. And then there's this third contender, the central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs. These are kind of like a hybrid. Digital, yes, but still issued and controlled by the government.
All three are battling it out for the future, and every move they make potentially takes a little bit of power away from the dollar's old-school monopoly. Okay, so we've laid out the threats: crippling debt, ambitious rivals, and this tech revolution. But let's get down to it. What does this all actually mean? What would a world with a much weaker, less dominant dollar even look like? So let's play this out. In a best-case scenario, the dollar kind of gracefully steps down a bit, and we move to a world with a few big currencies. It's a controlled transition, no big panic. But then there's the worst-case scenario. This is where confidence just evaporates. Poof, gone. Suddenly, you're looking at potential hyperinflation, global trade seizing up, and pure chaos in the markets. In that world, you'd see people dumping dollars and running for the safety of things like gold and oil, sending their prices to the moon. And that idea of running for safety brings us to our final stop. When the system starts to shake, where does the money go? Where are the so-called safe havens that investors and even governments run to? Now, full disclosure, this is absolutely not investment advice. This is just a look at where capital has historically fled during times of currency turmoil. And it's a pretty interesting mix, right? You've got the classic hard assets: physical gold, silver, real estate that actually earns you an income. You've got other more stable foreign currencies like the Swiss franc. You have the raw materials that everyone needs, like oil and food. And then you have some more sophisticated financial tools like inflation-protected bonds and stocks and companies outside the US. And hey, this isn't just some abstract theory. In one scenario that analysts have modeled out for 2025, if the dollar gets hit hard, gold is projected to surge by a staggering 65%. To put that in perspective, that would be its best single year in over 4 decades. It's a perfect illustration of that flight to safety we were just talking about. And gold wouldn't be alone. In that same projection, silver, sometimes called poor man's gold, does even better. It's projected to jump an unbelievable 144%. That really hammers home the point. When faith in paper starts to fade, people tend to remember how much they like things they can actually hold in their hands. So, after all this, where do we stand? Well, the US dollar is still the king, no doubt about it. Its collapse is far from a sure thing, and its power is baked deep into the global system. But the throne is shaking. It's being challenged from the inside by debt, from the outside by rivals, and from this new, unexpected direction by technology. The king's reign might not be over, but it is definitely evolving. And that leaves us with the billion or maybe trillion-dollar question. What comes next?